Hey everybody, welcome to another lesson of learning Japanese. Today we are going to be going over the zu form. So alongside having the kind of standard negative nai form, the Japanese language also has what is called the negative zu form, which is used for, well, we'll go into what it's used for after we go into its construction and how it's conjugated. So this is another verb conjugation. It's negative verb conjugation, and it's actually fairly simple to conjugate, even more so if you already know how to conjugate verbs into the negative nai form. So to save us some time in this video, I'm not going to reiterate these steps into conjugating a verb into its negative nai form. We'll put the link to that video that we did on negative nai form in the description and the comment below, so you can check that out if you don't know that one, because we do recommend watching that before this video anyways. But yeah, to conjugate verbs into the zu form, what we're basically going to do is we're just going to take the nai form and we're going to replace the nai with a zu. Pretty darn simple. So let's go through a couple of example verbs and conjugate them. We have the verb taberu, which means to eat. The nai form of that is tabeない. Take the nai off, add zu instead, so tabezu. Nomu, to drink. The negative nai form is no maない, so replace the nai with zu, no mazu. Iku, to go. Negative nai form is ikanai. Then the zu form is just going to be ikazu. Hanasu, to speak, to say. Negative nai form is hanasanai, which means the zu form will be hanasazu. And lastly, kiku, to listen, to hear. Kikanai, kikazu. Okay, kiku is actually not going to be the last one. We actually do finally have to mention two verbs, suru and kuru, which are irregular verbs. They express irregularity when they're conjugating to the zu form, very much like they do when they're conjugating to multiple, numerous other conjugations, because they're consistently irregular, they're regularly irregular. And so suru and kuru are going to be conjugated into sezu and kozu respectively. Okay, so now that we know how to conjugate verbs into their zu form, let's go into more contextual information about what the zu form is actually used for. So historically speaking, the negative zu form was pretty much just as generally used as the negative nai form. The negative nai form in modern day Japanese, you probably know that's used in a lot of grammar patterns. The negative zu form, not so much. In fact, it only really retains one usage, one grammar pattern that is used in modern day Japanese, and that is doing the zu form of verb with the particle ni plus whatever another verb in whatever form you want it to mean doing that second verb without doing the first verb that's in its zu form. So there you have it. Basically, the zu form nowadays is just used to say to do verb without doing another verb, and this is actually not going to be its own special kind of grammar pattern, because we have already covered another grammar pattern that pretty much means the exact same thing. Instead of using zu ni, we use naide, so basically a negative nai verb plus the particle de plus another verb in whatever conjugation you want to express to mean to do a verb without doing another verb as well. To make matters kind of even worse for the zu form, their version of this grammar pattern is kind of the less used one. It's considered more formal. You'll see it more so in writing than in spoken language, and so yeah, commonly people will probably go with the naide grammar pattern as opposed to the zu ni grammar pattern to express the idea of doing something without doing something else. So yeah, the zu form is kind of archaic, which makes this grammar pattern in turn less common. It's kind of more formal, and people won't say it that much, but however, I definitely am going to say that it's still worth learning. A lot of people are going to say that, and it's still worth teaching, of course, and you are going to hear it in some cases in everyday conversation. You don't have to just be reading books to come across this grammar pattern. It'll come across in spoken language and media and all that jazz too. In fact, some people might actually use this one specifically over the naide one because the nai form is so common, because naide, as we may know or should know, is also another grammar pattern that means to not to do something, to tell someone don't do that verb. So you can kind of get it confused if you're using these grammar patterns that basically have a very similar construction. So people might opt for the zu ni grammar pattern as opposed to the naide one to avoid confusion. So yeah, score 1 for the zu form. Okay, so we're about to jump into some example sentences here to get kind of more interactive with this lesson. But before we do that, we're just going to go over one more contextual detail. This grammar pattern, the negative zu form of a verb plus the particle ni plus another verb in whatever conjugation you want that to be, to mean to do that second verb without doing the first verb, is going to commonly appear with the particle ni, as you can tell from the construction that I just outlined. So this particle ni isn't mandatory, and if you didn't have it, it would still be grammatically correct, but you're gonna want to include it in there because that's pretty much how it's used 100% of the time in modern day Japanese. Additionally, that ni right there is giving a more accurate expression of how the without verb is kind of an adverbial phrase to the actual action that you are performing. So I do this without doing this. Without doing that is going to be the kind of adverbial phrase to apply to the thing that you actually did do. Okay, so now without further ado, let's jump into some example sentences using the zu ni grammar pattern to mean to do a verb without doing another verb. So let's use one of the examples that we had earlier. We're going to use the verb taberu to mean to eat, so this is naturally going to become to without eating basically. So our example sentence is going to be, let's see, 彼女は何も食べずに帰りました. This is going to translate to she went home, she returned home without eating anything. Let's break down this sentence bit by bit. First up, we have the word 彼女, which is going to translate to girl or she. We're going to be marking her with the topic marker wa here to make her, well, the topic of the sentence. And now we're going to jump into our grammar pattern. So for our grammar pattern here, we're not only going to use verbs, we're going to have a direct object to our verb. So the direct object is going to be basically nanimo, which is kind of a special word that doesn't require the direct object marker o. So nanimo just means nothing basically. That's going to be the direct object to the verb taberu, but taberu is going to be in its zu form. So we change taberu to tabenai, and then in turn tabezu. Or if we're kind of used to it already, we don't even have to do that middleman nai formula. We can just know taberu becomes tabezu. So nanimo tabezu is going to be basically without eating. Now we place that particle ni right after that because we want that to be the adverb to our actual action, or the action that she actually performed, which was kaeru, which means to return. So that's going to be in the past tense because we're talking in the past tense and the sentence is going to be polite. So this is going to be kaerimashita. It's going to conjugate into that. So all together once again, 彼女は何も食べずに帰りました is going to be she returned or she left for home without eating anything. Okay, so for our next example sentence, we have the line ドアに鍵をかけずに旅行しました or 旅行した. And this is going to translate to I went on a trip without locking the door. Let's break down this sentence bit by bit. First up, we have the word door. And this is going to be the katakana version of the English word door. So it means door. The particle ni is going to be right after it because this is kind of the just a particle that we use when we're saying a door and locking it with a key. So door ni. Then we have the word kagi, which means key. So key is actually going to be the direct object to our action. So this is going to receive the direct object marker o. So door ni kagi o. And then now we have our verb that is going to be in its zu form. It's going to be the verb kakeru, which is kind of the verb that you use with the word key to mean basically to lock something, to seal something. So doa ni kagi o kakeru is kind of the standard phrase to mean to lock a door basically. However, in our sentence, we're going to express the idea of without doing that. So we got to change kakeru to its zu form, which is just going to simply be kakezu. Then we add the particle ni as per the construction of this grammar pattern. So doa ni kagi o kakezu ni is going to mean without locking the door. So yeah, the particle ni is expressing this as an adverbial phrase. So now, since this is an adverb, we need a verb for it to modify. And so the verb that we actually did perform was the simple verbal noun of ryoko suru, which means to go on a trip basically, or to travel. We're going to conjugate our suru into the plain past form shita, which is, yeah, it's going to be the past tense. So all together once again, doa ni kagi o kakezu ni ryoko shita is going to be I, implied I, went on a trip without locking my door, basically. Alright, so that's two example sentences down. Hope it's been pretty simple to follow along to. Let's go through two more. For our next example sentence, we have the line あの子はいつも歯を磨かずに寝る. This is going to translate to that child or that kid is always going to sleep without brushing their teeth. So let's break down the sentence to get a feel of how this is translating to that. First up, we are going to have our subject slash topic, which is just going to be anoko. Ko is going to be the word for child or kid. ano is the word that means basically that. So that kid. Following that is of course the topic marker wa to mark it as the topic. So ano ko wa. Then we have the word itsumo, which means always. So just basically a time word right there plugged in there. Then we get into the actual bulk of our sentence. The grammar pattern now is going to have a direct object, which is the word ha, which means teeth or tooth. We're going to mark that with the direct object marker o, of course, because it's direct object to the verb that we're about to use, which is the verb migaku, which means to brush. So this is the verb that we're going to use in our grammar pattern now, so it needs to be conjugated into its zu form. So migaku, the negative nai form of that is migakanai, and so that means the zu form will then be migakazu, and that will be followed by the particle ni to turn into an adverbial phrase. So ano ko wa ha o migakazu ni is going to be that kid without brushing their teeth. Then blank, and that blank is going to be something that they did, the action to the subject, and so that action is going to just simply be the word neru, which means to sleep. And so altogether that will translate to basically that kid always goes to sleep without brushing their teeth. Ano ko wa itsumo ha o migakazu ni naru. We are going to go over one more example sentence, and this one's going to be fairly simple because we are going to use the verb suru. And well, admittedly, this is an irregular verb in this case, and it turns into sezu when it's in its zu form, but it's kind of a simple verb. So let's just jump into it. Our example sentence is going to be nantonaku benkyou sezu ni shiken ni gokaku shita. And this is going to translate to somehow I passed the test without studying. Let's break down this sentence bit by bit. First up, we have the word nantonaku. This is just kind of a phrase that means somehow or some way or the other, something along those lines. We do not have an explicit subject or topic stated, so we just move on into the word benkyo, which is a verbal noun. It means to study. It's a verbal noun, so it means it's going to be followed by suru. And suru is going to be the verb that we want to use with this grammar pattern, so it changes into its zu form, which is sezu. So benkyo sezu is going to be without studying. Plug in that particle ni to make the construction of this grammar pattern, and that's pretty much completing the adverbial phrase. Nantonaku benkyou sezu ni is going to be somehow without studying blank. So what is the blank? I passed the test. So shiken ni gokaku shita. Shiken is the word for test. The particle ni is kind of marking it as the thing to the verb that's about to come, which is gokaku, which means to pass. So to pass the test, shiken ni gokaku suru, and we have the suru here at the end is going to be conjugated into the plain past form just because we're talking the past tense, and it's a pretty casual sentence. And so altogether, once again, nantonaku benkyou sezu ni shiken ni gokaku shita is going to translate to somehow without studying I passed the test, or I passed the test without studying somehow. Okay, so that is going to be the final example, and it's going to wrap up our lesson here on the zu form, the kind of archaic zu form that still has pretty much retains one usage in modern day Japanese, and we just learned that. So we now have two options, given that you watched that other video on the naide form, to do something without doing something else. And so yeah, we do have, if you want some more example sentences, we have some more in the description below and on the link to our website, so check those out if you still need to get a kind of better grasp. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed your time doing so. If you'd like to express that, you can like the video, leave a comment below, or subscribe if you haven't already. If you'd like to support more of these video lessons, please do consider checking out our Patreon page. Also included on the screen right now are, of course, a bunch of links on where to find and follow us elsewhere online. Lastly, check out our Discord server. We've got a community of hundreds of, so if you're looking for somebody to voice chat with just to practice speaking Japanese, or if you just want to talk about anime or music or manga. And with that, see you next time.